the key data points to gear you up for the next trading day. I'm Reema Tendulkar. With me is Vamakshi Dhoria. And today turned out to be a very quiet kind of a trading session. You know, after 8 days on the trot where markets ended in the green, today markets were largely consolidating, taking a bit of a breather, and the Nifty ends with a minor downtick of about 0.2 to about 0.2%. So the Nifty ending at 25,069. But the mid-caps, I think the action shifted to the mid and the small cap indices where we saw that outperformance.
Well, absolutely, Reema. Today was a quiet day of trade. Monday morning blues is what the market felt this time around. Like you said, the broader end of the market was buzzing, and we had a couple of stocks buzzing in trade as well. Godavari Power, for instance, was up almost 11%. Anantraj was another big mover from the broader markets. If we talk about specific indices, then it was the Nifty Realty which led the gains, largely driven by Anantraj, of course. But apart from that, we also saw good gains in Prestige. It was up almost 3%. Brigade Enterprises also did quite well. PSU Banks also contributed. But what did not do too well is the pharma pack, which is down almost 0.6%. And this time around, there was no contribution that came in from IT as well, because that index too saw a cut of 0.6%, Reema.
Okay, yes indeed. IT saw some profit booking after the stellar run of last week. And then you had a lot of mid-cap stocks which were very active. So Railway as a pocket was higher in trade across the board. There have been a lot of recent order wins. And then individual, big movers in the mid-cap space. We'll discuss that. Let's also quickly tell you what we have for you on our show. The top movers and shakers with Hormuz. KRBL slipped in trade following a management change. The independent director has stepped down. Railway stocks saw an uptick after securing a 210 crore contract from BEPC, so that pushed up a stock like RailTel. And last but not the least, we'll delve into the key market events to watch tomorrow. But first up, as always, it's Hormuz with the big movers and shakers of the day.
Yeah, the index was in snooze mode, but can't say the same about a lot of stocks that were buzzing around today. A pocket that did very well, though, was the real estate names. And of course, the index was outweighed by Anantraj's moves today. But a lot of other real estate names also did fairly okay. Gains of around 2 to 3% in today's trading session. What also did well was the railway names, led higher by RailTel, as you mentioned. 7% higher on the stock. Ircon with a similar quantum. RVNL came slightly off the highs of the day, as did Jupiter Wagons and IRFC2, contributing to the gains in these railway stocks with gains of 1.5%. Newsmakers, of course, Anantraj features in this list. News was, of course, related to data centers. Newspaper reports, of course, which CNBC-TV18 has not independently confirmed, but 10.5% higher on the stock. KRBL, we'll talk about it as the show goes by. Northern Arc on the positive brokerage note, and Paras Defense going along from where it left off last Friday. And stocks that are at a 52-week high in today's session on very strong volumes as well. All of them. Banco Products, Godavari, Parag Milk, Radico Khaitan, of course, on the back of a positive brokerage note as well today. 4% higher on that stock. And a lot of the high-flying names of the last week are seeing some profit booking in today's session. Garden Reach was up around 10% on Friday. That came off. Ixigo or Latrevenues Tech also came off slightly. Precision Camshaft did well last week, as did Greenlam. All of them saw losses of anywhere between 5 to 6% in today's session. Back to you guys.
Well, thank you so much for that, Hormaz. Those were some of the top stock movers. Let's now go across to our guest, Sudip Bandyopadhyay, who's a market expert, and Jai Thakkar from ICICI Securities. Good afternoon to you, gentlemen. Jai, let me first start off with you then. After 8 consecutive sessions of gains, the markets seem to be cooling off a bit. What do you make of the move, and where do you think the markets will head from here on?
Hello, good afternoon to you, Vamakshi and Reema. Well, see, Nifty definitely was in a clear uptrend until last week, and we did see those positive close. But then, also, Vamakshi, what we also saw is that the up move was, relatively lesser. I mean, not even 1% kind of a move in a day or either of those days. So the momentum has been slow. However, Nifty managed to close about 25,000 levels, which was important, and still managing to, hold on to that. It's 25,000 level support, despite closing in the negative territory in today's trading session. On the upside, we had a target of 25,200, and almost we saw 25,100 levels getting tested. Why 25,200, 250 levels, Vamakshi? Because that is the previous swing high, and Nifty really needs to take off those levels in order to gain further momentum on the upside. So as of now, looking at the options data for the tomorrow's weekly expiry, I think 25,000 to 25,100 is the range. Wherever it breaks out, I think it will further get the directional trend. the further uptrend will be beyond 25,100. We have seen FIs, coming back now. I mean, they have reduced their pace in the, selling in the cash segment, as well as they have covered some of their shorts in the futures as well, index futures as well, which is positive. We need to look at the today's data. But in the near term, I think 25,000 is an immediate support, Vamakshi, and below that 24,800. Till this support range is held, Nifty is likely to inch upwards. And hopefully, banking sector, that is the only one, mainly private sector banks, which has not performed so far. If at all we see some good short covering out there, because that was outperforming today, if that gives a short covering up move, then definitely Nifty will inch towards 25 to 50.
Okay, PSU banks also had a good session, particularly in the last 1 hour. We saw a spike in many names like Union Bank, Bank of India, PNB, Bank of Baroda. But one of the newsmakers of the day was KRBL, that tanking nearly 10%, following an independent director who has resigned. And when he resigned, he's made certain allegations. So first, tell us, what he said, which spooked the street. And then he also chatted with the management to try and get a clarification as a response.
Well, absolutely, Reema. The stock was down and out in trade today, down almost 9.6%. And this is after independent director Anil Kumar Chaudhary tendered his resignation. Now, in his resignation letter, he wrote that the present dynamics of the board are inconsistent with principles of effective governance. And he has cited some key concerns in his resignation letter. Now, he has alleged inconsistencies in the recording of minutes of the board and committee meetings, instances of information being withheld, which has impacted informed decision making, as well as unjust write-off of certain export receivables without any adequate deliberation. Apart from that, he also highlights concerns regarding the use of CSR funds, as well as arbitrary distribution of variable pay, as well as annual increments to persons holding office or place of profit. He also alleges significant changes were undertaken to object clause without any comprehensive discussion. And lastly, undue interference by the invitees in the proceedings of the board as well as the committee meeting. So these are some of his key concerns which he had highlighted in his resignation letter. Now, it is important to note that KRBL had announced the resignation of this particular director on September 9th, but the details of the resignation letter only came to light on Sunday, which is when they filed that on the exchanges. Now, I spoke to the management of KRBL on record. They say that they categorically deny all of these allegations, and in fact, they have also announced that the company did hold a meeting today of independent directors post Anil Chaudhary's resignation. Third-party firm will be appointed to conduct review of observations made by the independent directors, and the third party will also submit its report in the next 30 days. So that is something that we'll be watching out for. In fact, let's also take a listen to what the management as well as Hetal Dalal of IIS Research had to say.
It was finally decided in the board meeting that we are going to have external auditors to vet the allegation made by Mr. Anil Chaudhary. And it will take about 30 days time to go into the details of those allegations. And there are about 6 or 7 allegations made by him. And I think so that things will come in a transparent manner after 30 days. See, if I say there is nothing inside it or there is this, let the independent auditors make their review on the subject, and that will be more authenticated. According to me, only one director has made those type of malicious allegation, which according to me, as a management head, I would say it's all wrong. They're all false.
Resignations of independent directors so quickly are never a good sign. I think what one of the things which is being sort of suggested in the letter at this stage, and it's an accusation at this stage, is the fact that there are significant governance concerns in the way the board is functioned. There's essentially dysfunction at the board level. And there is also, in terms of spending money, right, money being given to office of profit positions, which is essentially relatives of the promoter, and how CSR spends are being actually used. So what you really want, essentially going forward now, is an independent investigation into whether these allegations are, or whether there's merit in any of these allegations. Now, how will you run an independent sort of investigation? One option is, of course, for the independent directors to run an investigation, but given the fact that there is an accusation of board dysfunction. Right? You question whether the independent directors are essentially whether it sort of signals a certain degree of objectivity in terms of the investigation going on. So, therefore, the only option you're now left with is the regulator to step in.
Sudip, this issue will take some time to play out. That independent audit has to come back with a report, a response to all these allegations to find out if there has been any wrongdoing or merit in what the independent director had to say. But in the meanwhile, what should a shareholder of KRBL do?
Well, I think definitely not a good development from the company's point of view, and from a shareholder point of view. The share has already taken a beating, and I think the share will remain under pressure till the allegations are clarified and it's found that there is no merit to the allegation. I'm not saying whether there is merit or not, but only and only if things become clear that there was nothing really serious, then the prices can recover. Because otherwise the allegations are pretty serious, and I'm sure they will be investigated. Maybe somewhere the regulator also may step in. So I think from a shareholder, if I was a shareholder, I would be extremely careful and probably look for opportunity of exit. Of course, if I have a long-term view and I want to ride over this, then probably I will remain invested, because the sector is good and we are positive on this entire space.
All right, thank you so much for that, Sudip. But moving on, let's also put the spotlight on some railway stocks, because they rallied with RailTel leading the gains after it won a large 210 crore rupee contract from BEPC. My colleague Vinny is here with more of this. Vinny?
Right, so we had those railway stocks that were buzzing in trade today. Mainly there's a pickup in terms of order wins that we've seen coming in for these stocks. This was mainly starting last week. Now, first let's talk about RailTel, because that was the most recent one. Over the weekend also they received an order that was around 200 crores. This was from Bihar Education Project Council. Last week they received an order from Bihar Education Council as Project Council as well. That was for 700 crores plus an order of 19 crores from IRCTC. Other than that, whether you look at RVNL, they had gotten an order of 170 crores last week, and that was from the Western Central Railway. Jupiter Wagons too had received an order that was from Ministry of Railways as well. That was of around 113 crores. This was also last week. So a lot of order win pickups that again we've seen coming in for these companies. So that will be interesting to watch out for going forward as well. Now obviously execution, which had been a concern for these railway companies, seems like that is also going to be an issue that will be solved. Couple of triggers coming in for the companies going forward. Railway projects worth 77,000 crores are being implemented in the Northeast region. That was the comment that came in from Ashwini Vaishnav. PM Modi also has recently inaugurated a railway line in Mizoram, as well as he's highlighted the projects worth 8,500 crores are coming in on the railway front in Manipur as well. And like I said, execution is something that will pick up. Why? Because now the availability of wheel set, which was an issue, that has started easing off. So we could expect better numbers going forward if execution picks up.
Well, thank you so much for that, Vinny. Railway stocks indeed chugged along in trade today, but Jai, these stocks have been doing quite well, and specifically RailTel today was leading the gains on some of these railway names. So any view on RailTel and some of these other railway stocks? Where do you think they're headed?
Definitely, Vamakshi. I mean, with the recent development from the government side, I mean, already 13 lakh crore kind of, capex plan is there until 2030. But the recent announcement of 31,000 crores, that is a good government push, I would say, for the railways and infrastructure, which will help definitely these stocks. I mean, connecting the mostly, north side region. There is the borders of the China and Myanmar, and definitely that is positive for all the railway stocks, and also, the other related stocks as well. Maybe, metal space, or maybe, the infra space. As far as railway stocks are concerned, Vamakshi, I would say that there was a lot of shorts already in, stocks like RVNL or IRFC, IRIDA, all of those. And we have seen a good short covering happening in those names, specifically RVNL, wherein we had shorts. IRIDA, IRFC, all of them had huge long unwinding, because all of these stocks earlier had performed quite well. And thereafter, we saw a good, correction coming in all of those stocks right from mid of last year. It started with defense and railway stocks. Defense made a comeback in this calendar year, maybe, at the end of the first quarter, that is in March, April, or maybe, around those time, defense made a comeback, had a good move, and we saw lifetime highs again. Railways did. And I think with this kind of an announcement, definitely an uptrend can be witnessed. As far as retail is concerned, it can inch towards the levels of, say, 430 in the near term, as well as, the stocks like RBNL can inch higher on, back on short covering, which can help this stock to inch towards the levels of 370, 75. Even, the logistics stocks like Concor could also benefit out of this. So I think that this overall space now is likely to see a good uptrend, at least for this September series.
There were lots of mid-caps which did well. So one of them is Anant Raj, a potential data center play. Very small player, but the stock is excited because there are limited players who operate and can capture the data center opportunity. Parag Milk was a big mover. Northern Arc, brokerages are getting bullish on this particular counter. Northern Arc rallied about 8%. There was a DAM Capital note. 266 was the current stock price on DAM Capital, very large volumes. Sudip, any of these three companies, Anant Raj, Parag Milk, or even a Northern Arc, we've hardly ever spoken about it, but do you like or have you looked at these stocks?
Well, I think, this entire excitement around data center has been building up for quite some time. And some of the real estate stocks are, getting excited. Of course, there is a proposal by the government to give certain benefits for real estate companies constructing data centers. But I think a little bit overdone. The excitement is a bit overdone. And, the valuation is definitely rich. Of course, overall real estate sector does look good, but not because of this data center related development. If I have to look at data center and AI related development, I would rather look at some of these other companies like NetWeb Technologies or something similar, which mostly are in the unlisted space. These companies have got I think bigger opportunities coming to them because of AI and related developments, not the pure play real estate companies constructing data centers. So that's pretty much where I stand on this entire thing. The other part as other stocks, I think the rail related stocks, there was a lot of excitement, and I do like this Titagarh wagons there, not the ones which got excited today, but I think the fundamental shift which Titagarh wagons have done from a wagon manufacturing company to a predominantly passenger rail metro rail manufacturing unit. And the scale up has been amazing. The order book is overflowing. Execution has improved and further improvement is possible. Of course, the order book will continue to overflow and the performance will continue to improve.
All right, Jay and Sudip, thank you so much for joining in with us today. With that, it's time for a short break. We'll get you the top corporate voices along with key market events to watch out for on the other side.
Welcome back. Now let's go across to the key corporate voices that we heard today. So first up on the list is Tata Tech. The company said the decision to acquire the German-based S-Tech group was driven A, by market access, and 2, a capability play. They added that Germany is an important market for the company. They also said that the acquisition extends their coverage into northern Germany, where Volkswagen is located. According to the management, the acquired company, S-Tech, will add 7 to 8% to the company's top line next year and improve their margins. Further, they expect the second half of the year to be stronger. They also said that it's possible that FY27 revenues will cross $700 million, and their target continues to remain EBITDA margins of 20%. Now, they're not saying whether they'll achieve it, but that continues to remain the target for the company. Moving on, we also spoke to the management of AkzoNobel. Here they highlighted the focus is on strengthening their presence in the mass economy segment. Currently, the mass category is 35% of the market and the company holds a mere 1 to 2% share. They also expect their market share to increase to 7%. The company said painting cycle has been delayed on account of the rainy weather. However, they expect strong consumption trends in Q3, Q4. They expect to maintain a single-digit growth going forward. Also, in our consumption meter, Patanjali Foods CEO Sanjeev Asthana says products worth nearly 10,000 crore rupees have been shifted to the 5% GST bracket, down from the earlier 12 to 18%. He expects a 300 to 400 basis points boost in the company's food business sales over the next 2 months, but added that the rate cut will not translate into an immediate spike in consumption. And lastly, Biocon management told us that the new facility in New Jersey will offer better accessibility for customers despite higher labor cost. Biocon said the facility will allow the company to participate in US federal contracts. They also said margins may face a near-term impact due to the new facility. This facility is expected to generate $30 to $40 million in revenue. That's not all. They also expect approvals for Ozempic in the next 12 to 15 months. The company expressed a bullish outlook for GLP-1 market opportunity, and they stated they are well placed to capture the $150 billion GLP-1 market opportunity. All right, moving on, shares of Vodafone Idea rallied today. This is after reports said that the Supreme Court will hear the telecom operator's plea on additional adjusted gross revenue AGR dues on the 19th of September. That's next Friday. The company moved the court seeking to quash the DOT's additional demand of AGR dues worth 9,450 crore. It urged a recalculation of dues. And before we wrap, let's get you the key market events to watch for tomorrow. Vamakshi is now standing by with the big events.
Well, Reema, tomorrow we'll be watching out for the beginning of the US FOMC meeting. Keep in mind that this meeting is a cue that the markets will definitely be watching out for, given that, largely they're penciling in a rate cut to come in from Fed Chair Powell this time around. Apart from that, the US will also be reporting retail sales data, so that is something we'll be watching out for. Now, in the Asian markets, the Malaysian markets were closed today. They will continue to remain closed tomorrow, so no cues coming in out of there. Bajaj Holding will be in focus because they will be considering declaration of interim dividend on September 16th. And lastly, take a look at the action that is happening in the primary market. Euro Pratik sales, the IPO is expected to open for subscription. This is entirely an OFS aggregating to 451 crores.
Thank you very much for that. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Markets Forward. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side.
Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. Nifty and Sensex Snap an 8-day winning streak to end with marginal losses. Financial stocks and mid-caps buck the trend to end in the green. India's exports rise nearly 7% in August. Shipments to the US see a sharp spike just before the 50% tariffs took effect. Imports declined by 10%. Trade deficit narrows to just over $26 billion.